Hey, Kerfuffle fans, I got a really good treat for you today. Phil Masiello. He is a coach, he's a founder, he's a businessman, and he has got a lot of cool stuff to talk to us about today. I was talking to Phil a little bit before the show, and we won't hold it against him that he's a New York Yankees fan and a New York Giants fan. You know, here we love the Eagles and the Phillies, but hey, everybody's welcome. So, by the way, welcome to the show, Phil.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
So, Phil, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and a little bit about your history.
Yeah, born and raised in the Bronx. Yankees fan since I was born. I think when you're born in the Bronx, you get two things upon birth. One is a Yankees cap, and the other is a ticket to a game. So you learn that pretty quickly. But grew up in the Bronx, Italian neighborhood. I'm Italian, and I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I grew up in the restaurant business, and I went to college in Miami, and I decided when I was down there that I didn't want to do that for a living. It's too difficult of a life to be in the restaurant business. And so, but I still liked food. So when I got out, I founded my first business, which was like a specialty food retail store up in New York, which was, the store itself was great. The concept was sound. It was a disaster. And it was all my fault. It was 100% my fault. I was not a good leader, not a process manager. It was terrible. I feel so bad for the people who worked for me at that time because it must have just driven them crazy. It was chaos every day. And I sold it. And after about 3 years, not that I like to give up on things, but I needed to change the way I thought. And I moved down to Maryland. I went to graduate school at University of Maryland. Again, not because I needed education. I needed to reset my thinking. And I needed to surround myself with people who thought correctly. And I got involved with a company in DC called Such and Place Gourmet. There were only 2 stores at the time. And then I got involved and made a small investment, and we were able to grow that business to 12 stores. Plus we made a couple of acquisitions, and then we got acquired. And after that, I founded the Daily Market, which were grab-and-go meal stores in DC. And then we put up one of the first food websites, because this was back around 2000. We put up one of the first meal websites on there, taking a page from Omaha Steaks and that, because it was very new back then. And UPS, FedEx, they just didn't know how to handle the shipment of food. But nonetheless, we did quite well, and we attracted the attention of a major supermarket chain who acquired us. And the reason they wanted us was because they wanted that website. Nobody at that time really understood websites, and they wanted to turn it into their shop from home website, which we did. So I went to work for them for a couple of years. I'm not a good employee. I recognize that. I think differently, and I'm not good in silo worlds and internal politics of business. I mean, they were a multi-billion-dollar company, and that's just not good for me. So I left, and I founded another company which didn't work out so well. And then I founded a skincare line in partnership with a woman named Carol Alt. She was a supermodel, beauty products line, and we launched it. It was called Raw Essentials. We launched it on Home Shopping Network down in Tampa, down by you. And then we also were in Canada and internationally. And then we were one of the first brands on the Amazon Marketplace in 2006 when Bezos opened up the platform to businesses other than books, CDs, music, etc. And we did quite well for years. We were very satisfied with the business, and we kept growing. And while we had that business, we had this idea to go into the women's shaving business because we had such great skincare products, post-shave, pre-shave, etc. We needed a razor. So we went to the second largest razor company in the world. And because the number one razor company in the world is never going to private label anything, but we started in discussions with a razor, and then while that whole thing was happening, we wound up selling Raw Essentials. So after we sold, Carol and I had to continue to work for the company that acquired us, but I still wanted to do shaving, so I kept negotiating with with Energizer Corp, which owned Schick at the time. They owned a couple of other brands since called Edgewell. And we wound up going into the shaving business for men and women. And we did quite well. There's actually you're a baseball fan, so you might appreciate this story. We were struggling for the first year with trying to get acquisition, get customers to the site. And if you recall, there was a pitcher that pitched for the San Francisco Giants by the name of Brian Wilson. Mm-hmm. And at the time, Major League Baseball hated him because he had this beard, this huge beard, and he refused to take it off. He was a great pitcher, but he wound up getting injured, had Tommy John surgery. They traded him to the Dodgers. I got up one morning, was reading the news, and the beard struck me. So I said, we might be able to turn this into something. So I reached out to his people and said, I will pay Brian $1 million to shave with our razor. And all I needed to get back from them was, we'll discuss it with Brian, because then we could legitimately say we're in discussions with Brian Wilson to shave his beard with our razor. And it just blew up and went viral. I mean, it went incredibly crazy. People were sending us pictures of all kinds of body parts, telling us they would shave this for 10 grand, shave this for 50 grand, shave this, and then people were outraged at us and pissed off at us that we would offer a millionaire $1 million just to shave when, people are starving, and they just didn't get it. And then we were getting interviewed all over the place by every sports group, where they were like, what are you, crazy? And that launched us, because that got us a ton of orders, tens of thousands of orders, and brand recognition, and all of a sudden everybody knew us. And it's still out there, you can look it up. And that sort of kept going for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, and then it sort of died down. And then TMZ caught Brian Wilson coming out of a gym in California, in LA, and they asked him if he was going to shave his beard. He said, I'm not shaving my beard for anything, any amount of money. And then it exploded again, because people were pissed off that he would turn down the money. And so that's really a way to do sort of marketing or earned media without spending a lot of money, right? And that really sort of put us on the map. But that business didn't last long, because Harry's came into the market, Dollar Shave Club came into the market. Everybody wanted to be in the shaving business all of a sudden, and we had something that was very valuable, which was an American-made razor. And so, we wound up selling. And then after we sold, almost immediately after we sold Energizer, Edgewell called me up and said, look, we don't know anything about direct-to-consumer, so we need some help. We sell to Amazon. We don't know how to sell on Amazon. We don't have any of our websites that are focused on selling to consumers. And so I wound up starting that project. I brought on a bunch of people that worked for me previously, and that turned into what I have today, which is CrunchGrowth, because we started an agency like that. I sort of backed into it. I never planned on doing it, but so we help predominantly consumer product companies scale. You could be a $5 million, $10 million company, but you might be struggling with trying to get to 20 million, struggling to get to 50 million. You might even be a startup. If we work with startups too. So that's our sweet spot, is consumer product companies. We understand consumers very well, and we focus a lot on e-commerce. We're pretty good at that. We do a tremendous amount because of our background in TV shopping. It's really serving us well in this day and age, because we're really able to translate that expertise into social shopping, which is, using short form video and long form video to sell. So that's sort of my background, my story. I've written 4 books on different parts of marketing and selling on Amazon. And so, yeah, that's what I do.
People don't realize how much of a science marketing is. And they tend to, especially smaller business owners, put sales and marketing together. And while they do feed off of each other, they're really almost like two different things. It's like fire and water almost, but they need each other to exist. But it's interesting. So listening to the science behind marketing, and I've talked to lots of marketing gurus and stuff like that, and I love the idea of the beard, the shaving the beard, but what are some of the craziest marketing schemes that you've heard of, or marketing pitches or stuff like that you've come across in your career, or maybe you did yourself?
Well, the one that got us the most in terms of recognition and sales was Brian Wilson and the beard piece. But we've helped a lot of brands come up with some really great and innovative ways to get their product out. But I think there's two brands, in my opinion, that really, really understand their customer and understand their messaging. The first one is Dr. Squatch. I think those guys do a tremendous job with understanding who they're talking to, how they're talking. And you talk about the difference between sales and marketing. Marketing is really giving you that. Marketing is about the messaging, your mission, understanding who your customer is and understanding who you're going after, which makes sales a lot easier because now sales has something to talk about. They know exactly who they're talking to. So I love Dr. Squatch. I think they do a phenomenal job. I love their commercials, their videos. And the second one that does a tremendous job in terms of branding and messaging was Truff, hot sauce company.
Right.
We're in the hot sauce business. Well, we have a couple of hot sauce brands that we work with, and it's a company. It's an industry with low barrier to entry because you can pretty much make hot sauce in your house and sell it because it's so high in acid that nothing's going to live in it. So you don't need all the testing and things you do for other products. But those guys looked at it and said, well, there's a whole market that's missing, which is the top end of the market, which is let's make it a luxury brand. Let's take hot sauce and turn it into a luxury brand using truffle, and they all the way down to their bottle. Which again is marketing, that the way that their lid looks like a truffle. And so I think those guys do a tremendous job.
That's cool. I mean, I know that I've tried some stuff in marketing, and listening to, your history a little bit, you've had businesses that have failed and succeeded. And I've had some businesses that have failed and succeeded. And I remember one time I got an idea, and I forget where I got it from. Maybe it was online or something, but I took a pair of shoes and I went to like a Payless type of place. It wasn't Payless, but it was one of those type of places where I took shoes and I got different boxes and I mailed these shoes to these different places and told them, now that I have one foot in the door, let me let me tell you a little bit about it. It worked. It was kind of corny. It worked, but I got some calls, and some people did throw us some attention, but sometimes you got to think outside the box. And when you're talking about people like Dr. Squatch, I mean, everybody knows who they are now. They have the Travis Chambers type of commercials. Their logo, their color schemes, everything is down to dudes. That's what it's for the outdoorsy type of guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you help people develop that type of stuff with your consulting business?
Yeah, that's what we do. I mean, we're not really consultants. We take action. We help them do it. So, for example, you have a hot sauce, and what you're trying to do with that is get people to understand how good the quality is or how good it tastes. People hear hot sauce and they think automatically, oh, it's going to burn my mouth. So, especially in this day and age where you can take video out on the street, you can go to a college campus, you can go any place, a mall, and put somebody out there that's well-spoken and with pretty much a microphone and a video camera, and start sampling and getting people's reaction. It's similar to back in the old days, the Coke Pepsi challenge.
Oh,
the
yeah.
Coke Pepsi challenge was not about what tasted better. It was about the reaction that you captured from the people when they tasted Pepsi, who were Coke drinkers. And it was like, wow, I didn't expect that. Well, it's the same thing with hot sauce, because not all hot sauce is extremely hot. There's a lot of hot sauces out there that impart flavor. And so, we do things like that, or we'll come up with, very good ways of getting the message out there, whether it's using micro influencers or social media, or creating scripts and creating videos. And that's how we help brands. We'll come up with a way to take the message and get it out there in the way that is appropriate for the brand. And the second part of that is there's a lot of people that come to us that don't really know what makes them different. And we can get involved and figure that out. Some people are receptive, some brands are receptive to it, some aren't. It's amazing to me. As a coach for entrepreneurs, I'll tell you that one of the biggest success factors, and I have a TV show and a podcast as well, and I've spoken to over, hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs, and mindset is everything, right? Your mindset is everything, and that's going to lead to success. So I'm going to give you an example. There was one brand that came to us and they had a very clear point of difference, and it was timely. And we said, look, here's how to get this done. They were just selling on Amazon, but they weren't making any money, or making very little money. It was a struggle, and they wanted to expand out, but they just couldn't figure it out. And they came to us and we said, look, we can take this and we can turn it into little viral moments on social media and get some video, whether it's TikTok or Reels or YouTube Shorts, whatever it is. And we came up with this great plan, and they're going, yeah, that's great. And then we started doing it. We were literally a week into it, and it's bearing fruit. We're talking to micro influencers, and they're like, well, maybe this isn't right. Maybe we should just focus on Amazon. I'm going, I don't understand this. We told you that this was a direction. You're giving it a week and you're ready to go back. And then it lasted about literally 2 weeks. And they kept saying, almost every day they would send us these emails saying, I don't know. Finally, at the end of 2 weeks, I said, this isn't going to work out for us. We're trying to help you. Your mindset is stuck. You're never going to be successful. If you want my advice, and I hate to say this to you, I'm not trying to be mean. You need to sell your company, and you need to sell it now, because you need to sell it to somebody who's actually going to take this point of difference and turn it into something, because you're not. And the reason that you've been stuck for 5 years at the same sales rate on Amazon is because of your mindset. And we actually fired them as a client. And I truly believe that would have been the best thing for them, would have been to sell that business or sell that brand to someone else who could actually go out and make it happen. Because I'll bet you if I look at them a year from now, they're going to be in the exact same position they're in.
I don't think people realize, especially, well, I take that back. People are starting to realize, but I don't think everyone realizes that the power of the micro influencer. I'll give you an example. Outside of our podcast here, we have a second podcast where we focus in on the travel industry. And it's called The Cling Connection, where my wife and I do a podcast with travel to people from all over the world. And when we started the podcast, we started as a show, showing people where to go and things to do and tips to do. And it kind of morphed into more of a travel podcast. Anyway, to land my plane, we started getting more calls from travel agencies or camping equipment people to start doing reviews or start doing, talk about signing up for a course or signing up for this trip. And the next thing you know, we're starting to, get all these, I would say, acquisitions from these people that wanted to work with us to acquire our space. And there's a reason they do that. There's a reason that they get there, because they know that we have a niche market with the travel industry, and is mainly focused on Gen X, which has disposable income at that time.
Sure.
And I never even thought about that till you just started saying, about micro influencers, and now it kind of clicked. I was like, okay, that's why they're all hitting this up.
Yeah. You look at a brand, there's a brand out there called Graza in the olive oil business. And they really upended the olive oil business. And we have a lot of clients in that world as well. And what those guys did before they launched their product, they sent their product out to 100 micro influencers. So the day that they launched, they had 100 people online talking about their product. And that's just, so to me, it doesn't matter whether you have 10,000 followers, 100,000 followers, a million followers. The fact that when somebody goes and looks up your brand and they see hundreds of people talking about it, it lends credibility to it. And when they see hundreds of people using it, so that is social, that's your social influence. That's social validation. And it's more powerful than, a written review, because they can actually see who these people are that are using the product. And so I'm a big fan of micro-influencer, using it correctly. And you have to, just like anything, you have to manage the micro-influencer, because you're giving them the message that you want them to talk about. You're giving them the talking points. They're going to put it in their style, but you want them to make sure that they're hitting the talking points. And it's not applicable to every single product, but I would say it's applicable to about 98% of the products.
So you talked about white label. Now I know what white label is, but for the people that are listening to the show, or maybe are interested in getting into, some sort of a retail sales or an influencer looking at white label, can you kind of explain what white label is to the general public?
Yeah, white labeling is a manufacturer. Let's say there's a manufacturer of vitamins that you come across, and they're making gummy vitamins for, I don't know all the brands out there, but they're making gummy vitamins. You can go to them and say, I want to build a brand and I want to, use these vitamins. You might pick out a different package than somebody else is. You'll put your branding together, put it on the label. The reality is you don't have to develop fully the product that goes in it. So when we worked on the razor business, it was essentially a white labeled product, because the product existed. It just wasn't on the shelves. This was a particular product that they had kept, for themselves, and they wanted to use it in a different way. We wound up taking that product from them. So we didn't have to develop a new razor. We have to develop a new handle or a new head. They had it, and we just put our brand on it. And then we built the brand around it. But for us, you got to remember, we came out of the skincare side of it, the beauty side of it. We were trying to build a total shaving brand, not just razors. We were doing post-shave, pre-shave, shaving creams, aftershave. We were doing all the accoutrements. So the razor, when you talk about efficient advertising, you're trying to get customers to your site or to your brand, it's really impossible to market all your products. You have to pick one or two that are going to get the most traffic. And razors, everybody wants to try a new razor. So we were focused on the razors because that got people in the door. And we were doing 12 cartridges and a handle for $24.99, which is a great value. And people said, it's $24.99. How bad could it be, right? They come to the site, but our average sale was $72 because they were buying shave cream, aftershave, because we put all these packages together. And our long-term value was tremendous. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but it was in the $300 range, which enabled us to, that's an important metric when you're advertising, to figure out how much you can spend to acquire a customer.
Yeah, it's like you guys are doing the upsell. Basically, I'm getting a razor, and now I want the pre-shave and the aftershave, and maybe a little bit of the soap or whatever it is. It's an upsell.
Sure. Yeah, and that's the key to the game, right? Because it costs in e-commerce today. There's so much noise out there that you have to figure out a way to break through the clutter with your message so that people hear you and understand what your brand is about. And you have to get out there with a story that's compelling. You can't just sit there and talk about features. Customers don't buy features. They buy the benefit. They buy what it does for them. And a lot of times you see these brands doing ads and doing messaging, and it's all about them. It's all about the brand. But you can't do that. You have to talk about the customer. It's about what you're doing for them. They want to know what the benefit to them is, not the feature of the product, not the fact that it's made 100% recyclable material and all that stuff. That's great. But what it's doing for them in that particular case is it's making them feel good about saving the environment. And so the key, so the cost of acquisition is so high today that you have to do things to break through that clutter, and you have to figure out ways that you're going to get your messaging out. And that's where micro influencers come into play. That's where doing silly things with video come into play to attract attention. If you're just going out there doing the same old, and saying the same old, it's going to cost you a fortune to acquire a customer.
Yeah. And then now you also said you did some coaching. So outside of your firm, do you does a person call you, or do you host events for your coaching, or how does your coaching work?
Yeah, I focus a lot on entrepreneurs and young scaling entrepreneurs. And the reason I focus on that environment is because coaches don't want to do that, because entrepreneurs who haven't even launched yet, or are in the early stages, coaches don't really understand it, most of them, because they haven't been there, right? So I'm actually a coach who's actually done this. I can tell you the mistakes. I can tell you, what you're not doing. So what I do is I have group coaching sessions for young entrepreneurs, which makes it easy on their pocketbook, because I can have 4 or 5 or 6 people a quarter, and we can do weekly coaching. I give them a roadmap. I'll help them with their plan. I'll coach them through what they're trying to do, the pitfalls, things like that. And then have more advanced coaching as they get bigger. And sometimes, and that's through philmasiello.com, sometimes it overlaps with what we do at CrunchGrowth. And I'll give you an example. We had a client 2.5 years ago came to us, and they were stuck. A guy had founded the company. He grew from 0 to 20 million over a 7-year period, and was really doing a great job. They did wholesale and retail of their product, and they were stuck at around that 20 million mark for like 3 or 4 years, and they thought it was their advertising and their marketing. So they came to us from that perspective, and after about a couple of weeks of trying different things and really understanding it, I thought that there was a bigger problem. On top of that, they had hired this A++ player. I mean, this guy was a powerhouse for wholesale sales. This guy was phenomenal. He couldn't get he just couldn't get past go. And so I said to the CEO, I said, hey, would you want to do a 2-day offsite? Because I think there's a bigger problem here. And so that becomes like Phil coaching. And we did a 2-day offsite, and within 3 hours, I saw the problem. And it's a common problem with entrepreneurs. And it's a common problem that I did myself on my first business. So I was asking the question, why do you think to this A++ player, why do you think you're not making any progress? And he said, it's very simple. He said, I can't schedule calls because the CEO wants to be on every single sales call. So I'm handcuffed by his schedule, and he's running operations, he's running sales, he's running marketing, he's running this, that. So I can't do it. I looked at the CEO and I said, I've been there. I can understand it. You got to let go. You have to start managing the business, not immersing yourself in the business. You have to start managing where the business is heading. And literally it took 2 days to sort of get him out of that mindset. And once he did, in the last 2 years, they went from 20 to 30 million. And so it really showed him that we were correct in what we were telling him. And so now they're on the march, and the A++ player is just killing it. I mean, the guy is phenomenal. So so the coaching sort of sometimes overlaps with the brands that we're working with.
Yeah, and it's interesting too when you talk about beauty products, health products, things of that nature. You can scale those businesses. And again, I don't know a lot about it, but common sense would tell me that, something like on Amazon, you can set up reoccurring when, every month I'm going to get my new deodorant or something like that. And it's a reoccurring revenue if you can treat your clients right and you offer a quality product, because people always need to take a shower. They always got to brush their teeth. They got to comb their hair. They got to, wash their clothes, things of that nature. So, You also help with that, teaching about how to do that type of stuff as well.
Yeah. We actively manage. We actively manage Amazon accounts. We handle all the advertising. We actively manage e-commerce. We handle the advertising. We actively manage social media accounts. We have a development team. We build, host, manage websites. So, we're a full service agency. We do whatever the client needs, but it's true in that, we'll give them guidance. We'll even help them get into retail. We have some tentacles with some brokers and sales organizations to get people into retail. We have some connections in retail. We did a lot in retail. We have some people that we can help, and we do help them. And that's why I'm such a good coach for entrepreneurs and young startups, because I can tell them all the ways to get in. Because when we did Raw Essentials, we were in Ulta Beauty, Sephora, we were in Shoppers Drug Mart, we were international. So we did that ourselves, but retail is a different type of game because of the slotting fees and the rebates, discounts, accruals, and things like that. You have to the way that you do it the best is to make as much noise as you can online so that the retailers want you. And then when the retailers want you, you have negotiating space on slotting fees and things like that. If you're just trying to go in raw just from the start, it's really difficult, because now you're trying to displace an incumbent, and they're taking a risk, and they're not going to want to take a risk. And so, but we help in a whole bunch of different ways. Yeah, we don't just lay out a plan. We actively execute that plan. We do what we have to do. And that's what makes us a lot different and a lot better than a lot of companies. And we're on the cutting edge of a lot of things. Like, for example, we do a lot of connected TV advertising for a brand. So, which is so much more efficient and effective than it's been in the past, because you can track everything you do with connected television, and then you can retarget them online. So the conversion rates are very high, and the costs of television advertising have come down so substantially. Used to be, to get into that side of it, you had to spend about $20,000 a month. Now we can get you on television for about $5,000 a month, and we do. So we have a lot of brands. So we sort of guide people on what's best. I'll tell you that my people sometimes tell me to stay out of it because I'm not a good salesman, because we'll be on with a brand and they'll say, well, I have to, I want to do this and this and this on ads. And I'll go, that's not the best use of your money. You shouldn't do that. What you should do is this. I'm putting my entrepreneur hat on today, and you should do this. It's not going to generate revenue for us, but it'd be better for you. And it's true. So I always put my hat on as if I'm the entrepreneur and it's my business. So it's sometimes to the detriment of CrunchGrowth revenue, but it's the right thing to do, I think.
It sounds like, you guys really have your act together, because in my personal career, dealing with marketing companies, there's a lot of bad marketing companies out there. And, we don't really do the marketing per se. We're a content creation channel, but we get approached by marketing companies. And a lot of these guys just want to put a couple posts on social media, do a boilerplate marketing plan that they got offline, change your name into it, charge you $4,000 or $5,000, say, here you go, not help you implement it. And like you were saying before, with the other organization you were working with, the business manager, the owner was involved in every aspect. And a lot of times when you're a business owner, you're afraid to let go of that control, and putting yourself in that position with the bad marketing, and you're not trusting it 100%, doesn't give the owner a warm and fuzzy feeling to let go of that aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that what the brands that we work with appreciate about us is the fact that we do approach it on every client is unique, and we build a plan for that particular client based on the goals that they express to us. But when we approach it as entrepreneurs, as if it was our business, and we sort of guide them and say, I would do this and that, but I can tell you, I can speak in a different way to the CEO in the fact that I've been there and I've done that and I've made those mistakes. I did a presentation to an entrepreneur group a couple of months ago, and I started out and I said, in my lifetime, I've started 10 different businesses, and everybody goes, ooh, ah, ooh, ah. And I said, yeah, only 4 have been successful. The other 6 have been, not successful. I got involved in things I shouldn't have got involved in. But you learn from that. Like I told you in the opening, my first business I started when I was 27. I still carry that failure with me because I know what caused the failure. It had nothing to do with the concept. It had nothing to do with the brand or what we were doing. It had everything 100% to do with me. And so, leadership, the ability to separate your vision from actively managing the business to working on the future of the business are 2 entirely different things. So I do think that we're good at that type of part of the business, and people, our clients seem to be happy with us when we do it.
And now the difference is between product-based marketing and service-based marketing. So if I own a service business, let's say I own an air conditioning company or something like that. Now, you don't really mess with service-based business stuff, right? It's mainly product-based.
Our sweet spot is consumer products, but we do have some service-based businesses, but if you're selling a service, you're selling a product, right? You can productize what you're selling. If you're just another plumber, if you're going to go about it and say, I'm a plumber, and I sell, I sell plumbing services. Well, there's 100 guys out there selling plumbing services, and the customer's going to go and look at, what the best price is. Right? If I'm a contractor, they're going to go and say, well, he's just a contractor. So you have to help these guys, even if you're a solopreneur, help them productize their business so that they're selling something different. You're not just selling plumbing services. You're selling you're selling your plumbing care solution to the customer. You're selling your air conditioning, your refrigerator. The company I use for air conditioning or refrigeration, air conditioning and heat for my house, has done, I think, a phenomenal job of branding themselves as the solution for that. And they sell these service contracts, and they do a really good job of creating this product that can't be replicated by their competitors, right? They do some things a little bit different. So that's, in my opinion, the process, the marketing of it is the same. The only difference is that when you're dealing with service-based businesses, generally you're dealing with a fragmented group of small independent guys, small independent companies, right? But we do software as a service. We have a couple of software brands that we do marketing for. We have a couple of industrial brands that we wound up with just because but again, we turned them into brands. We turned an industrial company that sells concrete and construction. We turned them into a brand, and they're loving it. They've been our client for about 10 years. So in my opinion, everything could be a brand. But the other thing I wanted to tell you was we're very specific about who we work with and how we work. So you were talking about these other marketing agencies that are bad, and I agree with you. We're not a burn and churn type of business. Those guys are. They'll take everybody on. They just want to grow and grow and grow and take in revenue. If in our initial conversations, you can't express to us what your clear point of difference is. And I'm not talking about, we're better quality. Better quality is subjective. You have to be different. And if you can't express why you're different, or if you don't know why you're different, then we can't help you. Now, we might not take you on as a client, but I may take you on as a coaching client to say, let me help you figure out your point of difference. But if you're not open to that and you just think, well, my popcorn is better quality than the other guy, well, how am I going to do anything with that? I can't market that. I can't advertise that. What am I going to say? Well, the popcorn's better quality. Nobody cares. They're just going to buy, the popcorn that they're used to. So you have to have a point of difference for us to hang on to build around. And if you're just a Me Too product, we won't do business with you because you're not going to be happy. We're not going to be happy, and we're never going to get the results. And inevitably, you're not going to be successful because you're going to fight. You're just going to fight on price constantly, right?
Do you find that a lot of people that are in various industries that you work with tend to want to mimic or be a lot like the successful person in that industry? Like if you use Dr. Squatch as an example, and they're a very successful company. They've really grown over the past 10 years. They're everywhere. But somebody has a product very similar to Dr. Squatch. Now they're trying to steal that idea and they want to mimic because that was successful for Dr. Squash.
If they're in this country and they're trying to go after Dr. Squatch with the same product, and they're just trying to peel off customers, I won't take them because you're never going to be successful doing it. It's like every year. I remember when, what's his name? Oh God, I can't remember the name of the company even. It was acquired by Walmart, but they were going to show Amazon how to sell online. This was about 10 years ago or so. I can't remember the name of the company now. And they got acquired by Walmart. And every year you hear about how Walmart's going to upend Amazon. It's not going to happen. Amazon has the customer. Everybody's got the app. 92.7% of the population in the United States, of the buying public, has the app on their phone. And the first place they go when they hear about a new product is they go to Amazon. That's where they go. And they do that for a reason. They trust Amazon, Prime delivery, all those things. So if you came out to me and said, I have an idea for this company and we're going to upend Amazon, I'm going to tell you I'm not going to waste my time because it doesn't work. Now, I will tell you that there is an industry out there of people who copycat businesses in other countries. So in other words, they'll take what works here in the United States. They'll take what works and they'll go and they'll replicate it. So there's a very famous set of brothers in Germany called the Samwer brothers, and they started out. They came to this country in the in the late 90s or mid 90s, and they saw eBay, and they went over back to Germany, and they set up an eBay clone, and they were in business for I think 5 months. eBay acquired them for like $175 million. And they've since gone on and set up a whole structure of cloning businesses. They cloned Uber, they cloned Pinterest, they cloned. So they've set up this whole business of cloning. And that's a little bit different because they're in a separate country. They're cloning the business. And then the whole intention for them is to clone it, see if it works in Germany and get acquired by the company. Like Uber now says, okay, well, we'll acquire you, right? And they've made they're billionaires over it. They've systematized this. They've been doing it for 25 years. In that case, yeah, I think it's possible. So if you said, okay, and I'm sure there is somebody doing Dr. Squatch in another country, that will probably work. If you came and tried to do it in this country and try and say, that doesn't appeal to me. It's just boring.
It's always interesting to hear how people make money. We live in a world where if you just put a little bit of your head down and you think about stuff and you come up with, not only a solution to somebody's problem, but an interesting angle, you can really explode. And if it's unique enough, or like you said, even certain things that are very similar enough, you can really take off and be very successful.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you have to have you have to see a problem and then figure out how to solve that problem. And it might not be in the United States. It might be in a different country. You might see the solution in a different country and then bring it here. There's a company, Xiaomi, Xiaomi, that basically is an Apple clone in China, down to the interface. I mean, the product looks the same. The interface looks the same. There's a million of them. There's Uber clones in India. So people come and they see what works, then they try and clone it in another country.
I always think that's interesting when you say about things, in another country. What our travel channel that we have, we get a lot of people from the United States as our main sales point, but we get a lot of people from I don't know, Oceania, I guess you would call it, Australia, New Zealand. I think New Zealand for some reason is like, and it's really weird. You would think it would be Canada or the UK or somebody like that. New Zealand's like our number 2 country that follows all our stuff, and
right.
I remember looking at the statistics and I'm like, New Zealand, is there something there? Is there something there that I could do? The wheels start turning all the time.
It's funny. It's funny that you say that, because we have seen for some of the unique brands that we have as clients that are doing significant volume, a couple $100 million a year. When you start looking at traffic, there is a consistency of secondary traffic that comes to the site. And that they're trying to scrape the site to see what kind of sales they're doing, because they're going to clone it in another country, right? And the best one has always got to do with food, or got to do with, nutraceuticals and things like that. And you wind up seeing them pop up in India and Indonesia and Vietnam. So,
yeah. So now you also said that you were on television. You have a television show?
Yeah, I have a TV show on E360 TV. I do it every Tuesday at 6 p.m. and I interview entrepreneurs and startup people who have scaled. And the reason I do the show, and I love doing the show, by the way, it started out because I mentor at the University of Maryland School of Entrepreneurship, where I was doing that for quite a while. And, these young entrepreneurs would have this sort of distorted view of how it's going to go, how their startup is going to go. And they get that distorted view because when they look at YouTube channel, there's all these guys out there that make it look easy,
gurus, fake gurus.
And that's not reality. And so, you can never tell, I'll never, ever, ever in my life tell an entrepreneur that he's got a bad idea. Never. Because I don't know if it's going to be a bad idea or not. And so I can only coach them on to what to look for. But I would be mentoring some of these guys, and they all had this idea that they were going to put together a 10-page pitch deck, walk into a room with a bunch of investors, and walk out with a check. And that just never happens. Very rarely. Only if you're a guy who's already got 3 successful startups behind you, right? Can you walk in and get catch? So I said, and we were doing some marketing for E360, and they asked me if I wanted to do a show. And I thought, this would be a good way of getting that across. So I reach deep into my network, and I bring on people that have founded companies that have grown and scaled. And I bring them on and we talk about how they started, the obstacles they faced, the moments, the brick walls that they hit, the pivots that they had to go through, and all these different things. And there's a similar pattern, because the business plan you build today is not the business plan that's going to work, because everybody's had to pivot and adjust. Everybody has had to start out and try and find the customer to buy their product and make sure that there's an absolute market for your product and they're willing to pay for it. And what price are they willing to pay for it? So all these things we talk about on the show. And so we get a nice following, and we give a really good indication. We do it in a fun way, and it's very conversational, like what we're doing here, about how to start a business, run a business, operate a business, and scale a business. A lot of these guys have built $100 million, $200 million, $300 million businesses and exited out, which leads to another problem of, what do you do when you exit? But so we've been very good about bringing in all different kinds of people, super successful, moderately successful. We even talk about the failures. I'm very open about my failures on the show when we talk about, what caused them and how. And we talk about mindset, which we talked about earlier on in this show today. So we're just trying to give people a realistic view of what it takes to be an entrepreneur, what it takes to start a business. Yeah, there's plenty of businesses that took off like a hockey stick. but that's 1 in 100 million. The most businesses, you have to work really hard at it, and they take years and years and years to build, right? And so that's what we're trying to get across to them.
So what is the importance of an exit strategy? I've heard you bring that up. What's the importance of that? I've heard a lot of things where people say, you start a business in hopes to maybe sell the business or to pass it on to your kids or something like that. What's the importance of an exit strategy?
I'm glad you asked that. I have a friend, a guy named Vern Harnish, wrote a couple of books. One is The Rockefeller Habits. The other one is Scaling Up. And his philosophy is whether you want to exit or not, you should always have your business set up to exit, because you never know what's going to happen. You might some offer might come along that's too good to pass up. Your business should be structured and run in a way that it's easily transferable. You may run it for 20 years and then you want to pass it on to your kids, so it should be easily transferable. So all those pieces to your exit should always be in place from the time you start. Whether you're successful or not doesn't matter. Set your business up. So what does that mean? It means keeping that balance sheet clean, keeping your business in order, keeping your documents in order, setting it up in a way, the structure, whether it's an LLC or a corp or S corp, C corp, whatever it is, that's easily transferable to somebody else. Things like that, things that we don't think about when we set up a business. Sometimes we're just moving so fast to get going because it's really difficult to go back and get that stuff in order when you do get someone who's interested in buying your business or in acquiring you. And that you don't want to take a long time trying to fix that, or you'll spend a tremendous amount of attorney dollars and there's just no reason to do it. So, and then the second part of that is if you are successful for 20, 25 years and your kids want to come into the business, you want to be able to transfer that business to them in a tax-free way so that they're not burdened with, a big tax bill that they have to pay in order to keep going. So.
Yeah, I remember, using that analogy, my father and uncle had a very successful construction business. In the 90s, they were doing $20 million in sales, not revenue, sales, which was good in the 90s.
Sure.
And a company came in, wanted to buy them, and I don't remember, and I don't think I was privy to how much it was that they were going to buy them for. And my dad and my uncle said, "Nah, we're gonna keep the business. We're not going to buy it out." And I remember my mother saying, "Hey, look, you might want to."
Yeah.
At the time, you're still in your late 40s. You can go do something else. And they said, no. And about 5 years later, my uncle passed away of cancer, and the business went belly up. That's how quick it went. And, I think to this day, my dad still kind of kicks himself in the rear end saying, I should have sold that business. He'd be a lot better off today.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of people like that. You should never be so tied to your business that you can't step away from it and think about what the benefit would be to you in the future. You have to keep the business sort of separate from you personally. And believe me, I've gotten emotionally involved in several businesses, and it hurts when the shaving business, I thought we sold prematurely, but I didn't have control. I was the single largest shareholder, but we had other shareholders involved in the business. And when we started getting offers, we had a board. We had to present it to the board, and the board made the decision. And I felt like I had stuff to do with that. I still had things I wanted to accomplish with that business, but you have to sort of separate yourself out from that and do what's right for everybody involved.
So Phil, if somebody wants to find you for coaching or for your business to maybe talk to you about, working with you guys over at CrunchGrowth, the CrunchGrowth Agency, where are some places that they can look you up, see your story, reach out to you, do a little fishing and see what you're about?
I'm very accessible. You can go to philmasiello.com. That's my coaching site. You can go to crunchgrowth.com. That's the business site. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. Phil Masiello. I'm very active on LinkedIn. You can get me on social. Somebody will respond. My email is pretty much out there. I think if you Google me, I'm everywhere. I try and be very approachable and very active. I have, like I said, I have a TV show and a podcast. I have a YouTube channel, Phil Masiello. So it's very easy to find me.
Now, Phil, if you could give one piece of advice as a guy that's been there, done that, and you had a young entrepreneur, or maybe not a young entrepreneur, but somebody that's in the beginning stages of that entrepreneurial stage, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, the biggest piece of advice that I give startups, young entrepreneurs, is don't try and build perfection, because you're going to change. So you put out your minimum website, enough to get across your brand messaging, enough to get across what your product is about. Build your minimum viable product, because that's going to change. Get out there and find the customers who are going to buy your product, and make sure they're going to pay for it at what price they're going to pay for it. That's the best advice. I don't care whether you're a SaaS product. I don't care whether you're a physical product. I don't care whether you're a service. You have to understand who the customer is that you're going after, and make sure that they see value in your product. Because if you can't define that, you're not going to be successful. And too many times I see young entrepreneurs go out there and try and build the perfect website right away. They try and build the perfect product right away. That's just a waste of time, because it's all going to change. I guarantee it. I have never seen a brand launch that hasn't changed their logo, hasn't changed their website, hasn't changed their product, hasn't pivoted. So that's the best advice I can give you.
Now, Phil, one last question. Who's going to the World Series this year?
If you had asked me that question a month ago, I would have said the Yankees, but they fell back. They're in third place. I think they're 6 games out. The Orioles now are coming on strong. The Red Sox, it's still up for grabs. I think Aaron Judge is injured, so I think we have to get back. But there's these sparks of light in the Yankees where like last night, I think there were two sets of back-to-back home runs, which are great. The bats come alive, but I think that the Yankees definitely have a shot at it. I'd like to say that I think the Yankees are going to go to the World Series again this year. Hopefully it won't be as devastating as it was last year, but I think we're going to see. The Yankees.
Oh, the last year's series with the Yankees was, and I'm not a Yankees fan, but it was disheartening for the Yankees fans to watch that.
Oh my God, disheartening. Tears.
And we're praying for the Phillies. Hopefully they make it back. I don't know. So they looking okay. I don't know if they're going to go all the way or not. That's the big debate with my dad every day.
Oh yeah.
So, well, Phil, thank you for being on today's show. It was great having you.
My pleasure.
All right. And if you guys, want to check out Phil, we'll leave his website links below. And also you can go to our website to check him out, or any of our social medias. Click on the link. Just tell him we sent you along, and maybe Phil might be able to help you out if you're a small business owner or somebody that just needs that extra kick to get over the line. Or even if you're a big business owner and you want somebody to take a look at, an outside perspective, and maybe Phil can help you out. He definitely is a knowledgeable man. He's been around the block, and he's done a lot of really cool things. He's got a lot of great stories. So if you like what you saw, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and click that notification bell. We're on every platform, from YouTube to Rumble to Spotify to Amazon to, Apple iTunes, you name it, we're there. We're also on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, and we're on Facebook. And until next time, have fun storming the castle.